We live in a world that celebrates noise. The loudest voice in the room is often assumed to be the strongest. The fastest reaction is mistaken for confidence. The boldest display is confused with leadership. But what if we've been wrong? What if real strength isn't loud at all? What if the greatest power you can develop is the kind that doesn't announce itself, doesn't seek validation, doesn't need applause? Stoic philosophy teaches us something deeply uncomfortable for modern society, that mastery of self is more powerful than mastery of others, that calm is stronger than chaos, that restraint is more dangerous than aggression. The Stoic does not need to prove. The Stoic does not need to perform. The Stoic does not need to react. Because while everyone else is busy broadcasting their emotions to the world, the Stoic is busy building an unshakable inner fortress. Today, I want to show you why quiet strength is the rarest power left in the modern age, and how developing it will change the way you think, the way you move, and the way the world responds to you. Not because you are louder, but because you are unbreakable. In a world driven by algorithms, notifications, views, and endless opportunities to display ourselves, self-promotion has become the default language of success. We are constantly encouraged to show more, share more, react faster, speak louder, brand ourselves, and prove our worth publicly. From childhood, we are subtly trained to equate visibility with value. If you are not seen, you are assumed to be falling behind. If you are not heard, you are assumed to be weak. The modern environment rewards external noise far more than internal stability. Yet beneath all this constant display lies a fragile foundation, because attention is not the same as authority, and visibility is not the same as strength. Stoic quiet strength begins where this illusion ends. The Stoics believed that the most important work a human being could ever do is invisible. It happens inside the mind, long before it ever shows in behavior. They understood that no title, applause, wealth, or social recognition can compensate for a person who cannot govern their own impulses, fears, anger, or desires. To them, true power was not the ability to influence others, but the ability to command oneself. When a person gains mastery over their inner world, the outer world loses its power to destabilize them. Self-promotion seeks approval. Self-mastery seeks alignment. One is rooted in performance, the other in principle. A person who relies on self-promotion must constantly monitor how they are being perceived. Their confidence fluctuates with feedback. Their mood is vulnerable to opinion. Their direction can change with trends. Over time, this creates internal instability because their sense of worth is outsourced. They live reactively, emotionally negotiating with the world for permission to feel secure. Self-mastery works in the opposite direction. It is an inward discipline that builds an internal authority no external noise can replace. It means learning to observe your emotions without becoming them. It means choosing your responses instead of surrendering them. It means acting according to values instead of impulses. It means being able to sit with discomfort without collapsing into distraction or complaint. The Stoics believed that if you can govern your mind, you can govern your life. When someone has self-mastery, they do not need to advertise their strength. It shows naturally in how they move, how they speak, how they react, and how they decide. Their calm becomes noticeable. Their restraint becomes rare. Their consistency becomes magnetic. They do not need to remind people who they are because their character introduces them before they speak. Self-promotion often feels powerful in the moment, but it quietly trains dependency. It conditions a person to chase approval instead of excellence. Over time, it weakens internal discipline because behavior becomes shaped by external reward rather than internal standards. The more a person performs for praise, the less they train their ability to stand alone in silence, the less they practice restraint, the less they develop the emotional muscle to endure pressure without reaction. Self-mastery is harder because it offers no immediate applause. No one sees the private discipline, the silent self-correction, the unshared sacrifices, the unseen battles with fear, anger, ego, and doubt. Yet these invisible victories build a kind of strength that cannot be shaken by rejection, criticism, delay, or uncertainty. This is why the Stoics considered character to be the highest achievement a person could earn. Character does not depend on trends. It does not expire. It does not need permission. A person with self-mastery is not easily manipulated. They are not driven by the need to be liked. They do not rush to prove themselves. They do not overshare to feel validated. Their confidence is quiet because it is settled. Their presence feels stable because it is grounded in internal order rather than emotional chaos. in leadership, in relationships. In adversity, this kind of strength becomes unmistakable. While others react emotionally, the self-mastered person remains deliberate. While others panic, they assess. While others seek attention, they seek accuracy. Their authority comes not from dominance, but from composure. Not from volume, but from consistency. Self-promotion creates an image. Self-mastery creates a foundation. One can collapse with criticism. The other stands under pressure. One depends on trends. The other depends on principles. One exhausts the mind. The other disciplines it. One builds visibility. The other builds resilience. Stoic quiet strength does not reject success, recognition, or influence. It simply refuses to make them the source of worth. The Stoic knows that anything controlled by the world can be taken by the world. Only what is built within remains untouchable. When a person places their identity in self-mastery rather than self-promotion, they become stable in unstable environments, calm in chaos, disciplined in distraction, and grounded in uncertainty. This is why the Stoics did not measure greatness by applause or titles, but by how well a person could live in alignment with their values regardless of circumstance. They understood that real power is not the ability to control perception, but the ability to control reaction, not the ability to dominate others, but the ability to master oneself. Emotional control is often misunderstood as emotional suppression. Many people imagine it as becoming cold, distant, or disconnected from feeling. Stoic philosophy teaches something very different. Emotional control is not about denying what you feel. It is about refusing to let feelings become your master. It is the discipline of observing emotions clearly, understanding their source, and choosing your response rather than being driven by impulse. In this sense, emotional control is not weakness or detachment. It is a form of inner authority that allows a person to move through life with clarity rather than chaos. Every emotion carries energy, but not every emotion carries truth. Anger feels powerful, but it does not always reveal what is right. Fear feels urgent, but it does not always reveal what is dangerous. Desire feels convincing, but it does not always reveal what is necessary. Without emotional control, a person becomes a servant to whatever feeling speaks the loudest in the moment. Their decisions shift with mood. Their behavior changes with pressure. Their values become negotiable when emotions rise. Stoicism recognizes that emotions are natural, but reactions are chosen. There is a space, however brief, between what happens to us and how we respond. Emotional control lives in that space. It is the ability to pause when provoked, to breathe when challenged, to reflect when tempted, and to remain grounded when overwhelmed. That pause is where freedom lies. Without it, people live on emotional autopilot, reacting to circumstances rather than directing their lives. Modern society encourages emotional expression but rarely teaches emotional discipline. We are told to let everything out, to speak instantly, to react publicly, and to define ourselves by how we feel in the moment. This creates an environment where emotional volatility is normalized and even rewarded. Yet a person who cannot regulate their emotions becomes predictable, easily influenced, and easily destabilized. They may feel expressive, but they are not free. They are governed by emotional tides that shift without warning. Emotional control builds internal stability. It allows a person to experience intense emotions without becoming them. You can feel anger without becoming aggressive. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can feel sadness without losing direction. You can feel desire without abandoning discipline. This separation between feeling and action is what gives a person their power back. Instead of being pulled by emotion, they stand in command of it. A person with emotional control does not need to prove strength through dominance or volume. Their strength is visible in their composure. When conflict arises, they do not escalate. When criticized, they do not collapse. When pressured, they do not rush. Their presence feels steady because their inner world is steady. Others sense this and respond differently, often with more respect and trust, because calmness under pressure signals competence, safety, and reliability. Without emotional control, relationships become unstable. Conversations become reactive. Trust erodes because words are spoken in heat rather than in tension. Emotional discipline allows a person to listen without defensiveness, speak without cruelty, and disagree without hostility. It preserves dignity even in disagreement. It protects long-term connection by preventing short-term emotional impulses from causing irreversible damage. In leadership, emotional control becomes a defining advantage. Leaders who react emotionally create fear, confusion, and instability. Leaders who remain composed create clarity, confidence, and direction. Their teams trust them because they are predictable in values, even when circumstances are unpredictable. Their decisions are based on principles rather than pressure. Their authority comes not from intimidation, but from emotional steadiness. Emotional control also builds resilience. Life will bring loss, disappointment, rejection, delay, and uncertainty. Without emotional discipline, these experiences can fracture a person's identity and direction. With emotional control, pain is processed without becoming destructive. Grief is honored without becoming paralysis. Setbacks are acknowledged without becoming surrender. The person remains capable of moving forward without denying what they feel. The Stoics trained this discipline daily. They practiced noticing their thoughts, questioning their interpretations, and preparing their minds for adversity before it arrived. They understood that emotional reactions are often shaped by beliefs rather than reality itself. By adjusting beliefs, they adjusted emotional responses. By training perception, they trained stability. Over time, this created an inner environment that could not easily be shaken by external chaos. Emotional control does not remove passion, ambition, or drive. It refines them. It channels emotional energy into purposeful action rather than impulsive reaction. It allows intensity without recklessness. It allows compassion without collapse. It allows confidence without arrogance. It allows strength without noise. A person with emotional control moves through the world differently. They are less offended, less reactive, less desperate for approval, less anxious about outcomes. They conserve mental energy by not fighting unnecessary battles. They choose where to invest attention, emotion, and effort. This makes them more effective, more grounded, and more self-directed. When emotional control becomes habitual, it reshapes identity. You stop defining yourself by temporary feelings and begin defining yourself by consistent values. You become less disturbed by external circumstances and more focused on internal alignment. Your mind becomes a place of order rather than conflict. Your actions become intentional rather than impulsive. Your presence becomes stabilizing rather than chaotic. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness, weakness, or absence, but in reality it is one of the most powerful strategic tools a person can develop. In a world where everyone is constantly talking, posting, reacting, explaining, defending, and broadcasting their thoughts, silence becomes rare. Rarity creates value. When words are endless, words lose impact. When reactions are instant, reactions lose meaning. Silence, by contrast, creates space. It creates tension. It creates gravity. It invites attention without demanding it. People who speak constantly often reveal more than they intend. They expose their insecurities, their emotional triggers, their plans, their fears, and their weaknesses. They fill every quiet moment because silence feels uncomfortable and discomfort is mistaken for danger. Yet this constant verbal output makes them predictable. It makes them readable. It gives others information that can be used to influence, manipulate, or outmaneuver them. Silence protects internal clarity by limiting unnecessary exposure. Strategic silence is not the absence of thought, but the presence of control. It is the ability to observe before responding, to listen before speaking, to process before reacting. It allows you to gather information while revealing very little. It gives you time to separate emotion from decision. It gives you distance from pressure. In moments of tension, silence often communicates more strength than words ever could. It shows that you are not rushed, not reactive, not controlled by the environment. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People begin to listen more carefully because they know your voice is intentional. Your statements feel deliberate rather than impulsive. Your opinions feel considered rather than emotional. Silence becomes part of your presence. It frames your words. It creates anticipation. It makes your communication precise rather than excessive. In conflict, silence can be disarming. When someone expects you to defend, argue, or explain yourself, your restraint shifts the power dynamic. It forces the other person to confront their own emotions instead of feeding off your reactions. It prevents escalation. It preserves dignity. It keeps control in your hands rather than handing it over to the emotional momentum of the moment. Silence also sharpens perception. When you are not busy talking, you are watching. You notice body language, tone shifts, contradictions, and emotional undercurrents that would otherwise be missed. You become more aware of what is actually happening rather than what is being said. This awareness strengthens judgment, timing, and decision-making. It allows you to act based on reality rather than assumption. In leadership, strategic silence builds authority. Leaders who constantly speak, justify, and explain weaken their presence by overexposure. Leaders who speak selectively are perceived as more confident, more grounded, and more trustworthy. Their calm communicates stability. Their restraint communicates control. Their silence communicates that they do not need to perform to be respected. Silence also strengthens emotional discipline. It trains you to tolerate discomfort without escaping into noise. It reduces impulsive speech. It slows reaction time just enough to prevent regret. Over time, it builds an internal environment where your thoughts are not constantly leaked into the world. This creates clarity. It creates emotional privacy. It creates psychological safety. Modern culture treats silence as a void that must be filled, but Stoic philosophy treated silence as a space to be protected. It was seen as a place where judgment is refined, where self-control is practiced, and where the mind is trained to remain calm in uncertainty. Silence is where intention is formed before action. Silence is also a filter. It reveals